The NewsChannel 5 Network. This is Open Line.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Line. Glad you are with us tonight. We are talking about an issue that has made headlines for a bit here in Tennessee. The ACLU is suing the state. It's over a law that is scheduled to go into effect tomorrow. This is the law dealing with bathroom signage, and transgender community very concerned about this. So the ACLU suing the state. We're going to talk about that lawsuit. Happy to have with us via Zoom the executive director of the ACLU in Tennessee, Hedy Weinberg. She is joining us via Zoom and is going to pop up right now. Hedy, thank you for being here.
Sure, good to see you, Ben.
So, all right, let's talk about this lawsuit. You filed it on behalf of two business owners, one here in Nashville, one in Chattanooga. Bob Bernstein, a restaurant owner here in Nashville. But tell us about this lawsuit.
Sure. This is one of five really harmful laws that were bills that were signed into law by Governor Lee. This particular law has gotten the attention, no question about it, from the business community across the state. And what the law does is require that all businesses and nonprofits and others who have public bathrooms post a sign if they have adopted a policy or have an informal policy that allows transgender people to use bathrooms that match their gender identity. So one asks, what is the purpose? And unfortunately, there was a lot of misinformation and really very disturbing debate by those supporting this, not even debate, by those legislators supporting the bill. But at the end of the day, the lawsuit focuses on the free speech rights of business owners, because there is no question that government cannot compel businesses to put up signs that are political in nature, that are for the purpose of a stigmatizing message for the purpose of political expedience, which is basically the only reason we can see legislators wanting to requiring these signs to go up as a way to harm and harass the transgender community. But in doing so, they're violating the free speech rights of businesses.
So a business would have to put up a sign, and I believe this is the wording. It would say "notice" in yellow on a red background, followed by the text that says, "This facility maintains a policy of allowing the use of restrooms by either biological sex, regardless of the designation on the restroom." If they don't put that sign up, they could face criminal charges. Is that correct?
Right. They could face, there's a citation that is issued after the business has been given a notice of noncompliance, and then the business has 30 days to quote unquote comply. But, recognize that those who don't put up the sign, in fact, I've talked to many business and nonprofit folks who don't want to put up the sign, but if they don't put up the sign, they are very troubled by the fact that it appears that the setting is not inclusive and not welcoming of transgender people. If they put up the sign, they're being required to their speech is being violated, and they know that they are stigmatizing and in unfortunately many ways probably seeing their patrons who are transgender harassed.
Now, we've asked the Republican sponsor to come on several times. He has not been able to come on. But Republicans have argued the law does not target transgender residents and does not prohibit anyone from using a restroom of their choice. They say the bill is aimed at privacy protections. What do you say to that?
I've never been clear what they mean by privacy protections. We are talking about transgender individuals, men, women. They are, these are people who identify as male or identify as female. And there's no question that the legislature made a decision to pass these bills. And you have to only look at the other anti-trans bills that were passed this session to recognize that this was a focus, real attack on the trans community in terms of not only stigmatizing and marginalizing them, but really bringing a lot of harm to individuals who are part of the trans community. And again, the business world the businesses, the corporations, the small businesses in Tennessee have spoken out. They are not taking this lightly. This is an infringement on their free speech rights. And it's also, for them, concerning because it is the state of Tennessee clearly targeting transgender community.
And all right, so one of the plaintiffs, Bob Bernstein, again in Nashville, he owns Bongo Java and Fido. People may know his restaurants. Hasn't he said something along the lines of, I let people choose what bathroom they want to go into? And doesn't...
I don't know.
Well, yeah, maybe you don't know, but does the lawsuit say something about business owners can't be expected to stand in front of their bathroom door and check to see, I guess, what gender is going in where? Or I'm probably saying it wrong, but I don't even know how you enforce this.
Well, I think there are a lot of questions about, once they pass this law, which is clearly for, I think, political expedience and to try to speak to, I gather, some of their constituents who think that the trans community should not be included in public spaces, which is what this is all about. It's trying to, again, I use the word marginalize, but really harass and harm transgender individuals. But at the end of the day, we have to accept that our community, our city, our state, our country, worldwide, it should be inclusive and understand that there are people, we have a diverse community. There are people of different races, ethnicities, sexual orientation, and gender identity. And I think part of the problem here, and that's what's so painful to listen to the sponsor or others at the legislature, they speak out of ignorance. They speak to be, give them a little space, perhaps out of fear. The sponsor of the bill said he's never spoken to a transgender individual. That's really concerning to think that someone is wanting to target a group of people and yet hasn't even had conversations with those individuals. Transgender people, their gender identity they should be allowed to use the bathroom that matches their gender identity. And the fact is, this law is trying to harass, marginalize, and really intimidate transgender individuals who come into a public space, identify as female, and then are told there's a big sign that says you might find someone of the opposite sex. These are not people of the opposite sex. A transgender man is a man and a transgender woman is a woman.
And what would a business have to do to not be, I guess, fined under this law if they didn't put up one of these signs? What are businesses supposed to do if they don't put up one of these signs? Are they supposed to have a third bathroom? Or what are they supposed to do?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, the fact is that if you don't put up a sign and you have sex-designated bathrooms, especially multi-stall bathrooms that are, identified, this is for women, this is for men, that if you don't put up a sign, the assumption is that a transgender person is not allowed in that bathroom. That's, I can't get into the mindset of the sponsor, but I guess that's what he thinks is happening or will happen. It's very unclear because what is the purpose of posting the sign? And I would love to hear what he says privacy protection means. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's what they said, privacy protection. We've asked him to come on several times. He has not been able to come on. So this was signed into law by the governor, by Governor Lee. And again, it's supposed to go into effect tomorrow. You just filed this lawsuit. What does that mean? Does it mean it is delayed, or is it going into effect tomorrow?
No, what we've done, and because there's a 30-day period, so if a fire marshal, and this law will be enforced by the state fire marshal, who will have, I guess, inspectors who do a lot of work, and I can't imagine, though they might be asked, certainly because the state fire marshal is the commissioner of the Department of Commerce, and as you know, those commissioners are selected by the governor, and the governor has chosen to sign into law 5 anti-trans bills that are discriminatory and opposed by the business community that he says he wants to support and welcome more businesses, domestic and international, into our state. But what happens is, yes, the law goes into effect tomorrow. If a fire marshal inspector happens to decide they are going to spend the day checking out bathrooms and they don't see signs, and perhaps they see a transgender person, or they ask the business owner, do you allow transgender people to enter various bathrooms? Then if the sign's not up and the business owner says, my bathrooms are open, my bathrooms are inclusive for all people, for people who are transgender, who want to be able to use a bathroom that matches their gender identity. If the owner says that, then, and there's no sign, then that owner will get a notice of non-compliance. And that owner has 30 days in which to comply. So it'll take 30 days in order for a citation to be issued. What we've done is, when we filed the lawsuit, we followed up with a request that a preliminary injunction be issued. And that preliminary injunction would then keep the law from being enforced until there was, a hearing. At this point, we have filed requesting the court to issue a preliminary injunction. The court has asked the state to file their motion, their response, and then the court can choose to issue the preliminary injunction, can choose to have a hearing. That's going to then be up to the court to the next step. But our goal is to keep the business community and keep certainly the transgender community from being placed in a public space where they see the sign posted and the business community has to violate their free speech rights are violated.
I feel sorry for the fire marshal who has to spend his time going around asking those kind of questions. But now the district attorney, Glenn Funk, here in Nashville, he has said he would not enforce this. Isn't that right? He has said he's not going to press charges against anyone refusing to post signs. And that has also upset the people who supported this bill, and they say that's inappropriate, and they question whether he should even be removed over that. What about the fact the district attorney here in Nashville has said that?
Again, district attorneys are some of the most powerful people in our state criminal legal system, and they always make decisions. They make decisions about whether or not they're going to prosecute someone, what the charges will be, what kind of sentencing they want. So it's not unusual for district attorneys to make comments. I think General Funk is leading and making it very clear that we live in an inclusive, welcoming community. I think there are a number of district attorneys across the state who will not do the same thing as General Funk, and I think that's why this lawsuit is so important, because it would, if successful, ensure that this type of law is not enforced, that business owners and nonprofit folks are not required to post an offensive sign that violates their free speech rights, and that the transgender community is not targeted and marginalized in a way they have been for quite some time. But certainly if you spend any time at the legislature this past year, you saw that they were the one group that the legislature chose to target. And our legislature typically likes to choose, a marginalized community or a minority community and just go at it. And that's what's so sad about what's happening to Tennessee. We are getting national news because of this law. It's the first in the country. And it's very disturbing to the business community. We've worked very closely with the LGBT Chamber, and I'm sure you've had him on the show, Joe Woolley, but there's no question that this is front and center for the business community. Not only because it discriminates against the LGBT community, but it violates business owners' rights. I want to underscore, because people say, well, businesses are required to post signs all the time. Like the employee is required to wash their hands. The courts have been very clear and have recognized that businesses are required to display factual information signs. But again, this this required signage under this law there's no reason for it. It is, again, for political expedience. It is offensive, and there is not a place that our government should have in telling businesses what they have to say to their folks.
Nationwide, there have been several of these types of bills that follow kind of a similar form. And you said this is the first one in the country. So is this bill unique? Because some of these others, you know, the sports bills with transgender, some of those we're seeing all over the country, and Tennessee certainly passed that, but that was not unique to Tennessee. Is this bill unique to Tennessee?
This bill is unique to Tennessee, first in the country. I don't think any other bills that I'm aware of, that our folks are aware of, were even filed in other parts of the country. So yes, you know, Tennessee, unfortunately, is first in some of the wrong. It's not exactly where we want to see them being first. There are places where we do when it comes to education equity and, you know, access to the ballot box. But this is not a place we should see ourselves. And again, this is a civil liberties, it's a civil rights issue, and it is of great concern to the business community. And the business community, you know, has recently spoken out very clearly around issues around access to the ballot box, and they are speaking out against this particular law in Tennessee.
Well, very interesting. Okay, well, that kind of sets the table for our discussion. I encourage people now to call in. Questions, comments, whatever. There's the number at the bottom of the screen, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We will take a break. Come back right after this.